Good evening and welcome. On behalf of the LGBT Center, I want to welcome you all to our virtual Second Tuesday program with Justin Vivian Bond and artist Liz Collins. My name is Richard Morales and I'm the manager of community partnerships here at the LGBT Center. And again, want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Here to welcome us is our friend Howard Williams. Take it away.
Thank you. My name is Howard Williams, and I'm the coordinator for the volunteer coordinator here for the Second Tuesday Lecture Series, which is the longest-running cultural event here at the center. Over the past 30 years, the Second Tuesday Lecture Series has presented more than 300 noticed authors, artists, politicians, performers, academics, religious leaders, athletes, and musicians in informal lectures, discussions, readings, and films. Probably most famously in March of 1987, Larry Kramer's appearance at the Second Tuesday Lecture was the first step in ACT UP. I hope you're all members of the center. If you're not, you should go there and sign up for the newsletter. Then on November 10th, we're going to have Eric Cervini, who's the author of The Deviance War, The Homosexual versus the United States of America, who will be talking with Hugh Ryan, our good friend, who is the author of When Brooklyn Was Queer. I'm going to throw this over now to Debbie, who's going to introduce our guests for tonight.
Yeah, and I'm here tonight with Justin Vivian Bond and Liz Collins, who currently have a show up at the gallery. It's our second show together. I'm really, really proud of the show. And we did a show together back in 2014, Viv and Liz, and at my old space on the West End in Provincetown. And to tell you the truth, I thought that this might be my very, very last season. And in thinking about how I wanted to go out, I thought I really wanted to go out with Viv and Liz because I have, I hold their work in such high esteem. It's hard to even talk about this without sort of, acknowledging all the heartbreak around everything that's been going on. As from a gallery perspective, one of the really nice things is that I feel that the people who have come to the gallery this year have come with a sense of purpose and really sort of wanting to engage with the art. And that feels really kind of refreshing and beautiful because honestly, I feel people have been so distracted, distraught, these last few years, and often will come in the space, phone in hand, not really even paying attention to what's on the wall. And I feel now there's sort of a more dedicated sort of sense of viewing. Mm-hmm. And so it's been kind of, surprisingly wonderful in a lot of ways.
And that brings me to, the conversations that Liz and Viv and I started having when we were planning this program and looking at that. And I'm just curious if we can touch a little bit about what we're just talking about right now and the impact of COVID on the arts. Viv, when we started talking, I was saying the last time that I heard your voice in this living room of mine was when you were performing the happy hours, which you had to end because you wanted to focus a bit on the show to what we're going to see in a few minutes. So would love to hear from you, both you, Liz and Viv, about your opinions on what the impact of COVID has been on the arts as you see it.
I had a pretty big year planned this year performing. I was away a lot. I felt kind of isolated before the pandemic even started because I was in Vienna in all of November and December working on an opera, and I didn't really know anybody there. And so I was really kind of away from my friends and my family, and then I was back for January and February, and I did a show New Year's Eve, and then I did a show at Lincoln Center with Glenn Close. It was very glamorous. And then I had a few shows at Joe's Pub, and I started rehearsals with Anthony Roth Costanzo, the countertenor, and we had 3 shows planned in March for Joe's Pub, but I had 33 concerts booked for Joe's Pub alone this year, and that was a lot for me, but I was very excited about it. And so, you know, I didn't know when lockdown started in March that all of those were going to be canceled, but my shows with Anthony were canceled right when lockdown started. And then as time went on, all my shows were canceled. And I had this conversation with Deb last summer about doing a show at AMP, and I thought, well, this will probably, well, it won't require an audience. And so it seemed like something that was potentially could happen. So we really quickly confirmed, and I was like, okay, well, that's something that I at least can have some sort of control over, because I make that work myself. I don't have to collaborate with musicians. I don't have to find a place to rehearse. And so I felt really great knowing that I was going to be able to focus on that, and that was something I had to look forward to. But for me, with the performances, and tell me if I'm going on too long, but I didn't really know with the anti-glam thing that, you know, this sort of virtual performance thing was really going to happen. The first weekend I was up here, Tyler, Ashley, and
Tyler.
They did their drag brunch on a roof, and they streamed it on YouTube. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do that, you know, because then that week everybody got shut down. And so I said to my housemate, David Sikovsky, who is a piano player, I said, well, maybe we should just do a show, because nobody has anything else to do. Everybody's stuck inside, not knowing that it would generate any sort of cash or anything. I just wanted to cheer people up.
It worked.
And myself. And then after the first week, I found out about, you know, Venmo and all that, and getting tips for performing. But I just started making these cocktail tutorials so people could have a drink, and gave people an excuse who were stuck inside to get dressed up, have a drink, and, you know, watch the show. And so for the first few weeks, that was fantastic. I tried to keep it light, and I tried to keep it as light as possible throughout. But then, of course, George Floyd was murdered, and all of this stuff started to go down, and it became a real heavy world, much more so than just being locked down, much more so than just being in your own hibernation in a way. So then it became much more difficult, because I had to really balance entertainment and not being too superficial. So it became a really wonderful way for me to keep connected with people, and keep connected with myself as an artist, and keep sane. And exactly. So it kept me sane, and it kept me focused. It was kind of exhausting, because I did it for 16 weeks, and I did 4 songs a week, and then monologues. So that was like 60-some songs in 4 months.
And cocktails on top of that too, before.
And I learned how to make a lot of cocktails. So if, you know, bars ever reopen, Mother might have a job as a bartendress.
I think, you know, one of what you said was something that we've all, like, I feel like as arts programmers, and, you know, working in the cultural field too, is like always thinking about, like, are we thinking of putting on programming for program's sake, or are we thinking of putting on programs because we actually want to create spaces that connect with people? I'd love to hear, you know, Liz, what your thoughts were or are with regards to, you know, using these kinds of digital platforms in a way to interact or continue to interact with people. Wow.
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. I love this comment feature. This is going to be like a major distraction. Anyway, Well, there's a lot to say. I mean, Viv covered a lot about the impact of COVID on the arts, and I just want to add that I feel like there's been a huge impact. One of the biggest things is that a lot of people are really broke and don't have work. I was listening to a talk the other day. I think it was Paul Rudnick and Bette Midler talking about coastal elites. And Paul Rudnick was saying, like, there are 50 costume shops in New York City and none of them are working, and just like that one little slice. And so, I'm happy to be doing things, which, a lot of my things got postponed or canceled, but I'm riding the wave. And I also, as an artist who appreciates alone time and benefits from, kind of slowing down, because I kind of move, I'm like in Uber, like high speed production and multitasking a lot. So it's been really good to slow down. Although, slowing down is an opportunity to pay attention more to the news and to like really absorb a lot of the horror show that we've been in on all these different levels. And so that's been really intense, like, that like daily anxiety and fear and, frustration, all of those emotions stirred up on a daily basis that I'm sure many people on this call can relate to, just like baseline bad feelings daily, intermixed with like this incredible wealth of connection that's happening in these spaces. And that's been one of the things that has really been carrying me through these months, like from the beginning, these talks, these conversations, these meetings. Like, I'm not a Zoom hater because I don't have a job where I have to be on digital platforms all day. I mean, I do my fair share of emailing for sure, but I love having these talks on and just listening to artists and curators and culture producers and thinkers and writers and everybody. There's so activists, there's so much to hear and think about and to like connect with right now. So I think it's been something really amazing, actually. And archivally, this time is just this explosion of like, content. So I really appreciate that. And deep, like I'm saying yes to all the talks because I like to, it's one of my ways to connect with other people.
Amazed also by the amount of work that's being produced. The amount of content that I see a lot of queer people also spearheading to is something that I think I've not witnessed before, to an extent where, there was a part during the early lockdown phases where people were doing a lot of drag shows on Twitch. I know which show that Tyler did and Charlene that you were talking about, because I saw some of it as well, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Queer people are blowing things up right now. They're taking like these digital spaces and really transforming them, because it's like, quick thinking, like, what do? We don't have gigs anymore. We need to like make sure not only that we're getting coin, but that we're also like being present and relevant to the community and not being tone deaf, because
being connected with each other, because we need each other.
Mm-hmm. And so when we started having this conversation too, I was thinking about, both of you have these like are approaching your work from these 2 points, but there's a point where you meet, in the sense that I see your work as being also very site specific, right? Viv, and you perform, and then you also do the watercolors and the painting and the tactile, and Liz, yours are more site specific and installation based. So I saw that for me as a thread. I'm curious, Debbie, since you've paired them multiple times, like what were the connections that made you think, you know what, I want to do another show with Viv and Liz again here at AMP?
Both of them have this incredible kind of they're both following, I think, whatever transformation, whatever sort of motivation that they're, that they're sort of wanting to go in, they both are kind of fearless in following that. And I love that about both Liz and Viv. And the work in itself couldn't be more different. And yet there is a kind of beautiful, energetic connection. And maybe it is that sort of open brain, that sort of willingness to experiment, to use their voice in multiple different ways. So, yeah. Plus, we had so much fun the first time. I thought it'd be great to do it again. So,
so nice to hear all those things, Debbie.
Well, it's how I really feel, and I could go on, but
Why don't we start?
Yeah.
Thank you. And why don't we start by digging into the show a little bit? So we have a couple of videos that we're going to share with you. We'll start off with Viv's work, and then we'll talk a little bit about that, and then segue into Liz's work. So we're going to start with Viv's.
I have put together called Which Eye. The title comes from this conversation the movie actress Joan Crawford had with the director when she was sort of later in her career, when he asked her, after she'd already won an Academy Award and had a 30-some-year career, if she could cry on cue, and she said, out of which eye? I don't even know if you can hear me. Out of which eye? And so I wanted to do a show that sort of took that title, which inspired me because, there's the devil's eye, there's the evil eye, and I started painting these eyes right after the 2016 election. I call them witch eyes to protect you from evil chodes. So instead of evil eyes or anything, I took people who I admire and who I think of as protectors, people that stand up and take a stand on behalf of other people. So I have here, for instance, Janet Mock, who wrote the book. It's something about passing, redefining realness. There we go. And Laverne Cox. And this is Essex Hempel, who wrote this poem, American Wedding, that was the track for my first track. It's the first track that I put a tune to for my first CD. And Kate Bornstein, who wrote the play Hidden Agenda, which was sort of my coming out as trans in 1990, and she's a hero of mine. And so Hattie McDaniel, who's the first African-American woman to receive an Academy Award. And here's Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams. And the Truman Eye was really important to me because I was watching this during COVID lockdown, this old Dick Cavett interview where he really ferociously came to the defense of Tennessee Williams, who's one of the greatest American playwrights, whose most recent play was savaged by the critics because they were homophobic and just, mainstream critics trying to diminish the accomplishments of queer people. And so again, about being underestimated by patriarchal males like Joan Crawford was. And so this show, which is full of mostly queer people, some women who are not queer, but who also rose up and made statements that were powerful and amplified each other's voices, like Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton in 9 to 5. This is a triptych. And that movie was very, empowering for its time in the late 70s, but the message still resonates. And so that's really what the show's about. So when people take these eyes home and they put them in their houses, I have my, which eye, facing my door. So it's to keep the evil, bad juju, the bad energy of patriarchal oppression outside of my house. And so that's what this is. It's like a series of little spells and talismans for people to focus on. And for me, it was great because each eye was a meditation, and I got to spend time with somebody who I admired and loved. For instance, this is Lena Horne, and one of my favorite Lena Horne quotes, there was a book about her by this guy named Jim Gavin, and of course, Martin Luther King, she was at the March on Washington, and Martin Luther King espoused nonviolence, whereas Malcolm X didn't, and she was a huge fan of Malcolm X, and when Malcolm X died, I think it was her husband who was saying, why are you so much more upset about Malcolm X than you were about Martin Luther King? And she said, because Malcolm X was I think I'm paraphrasing it, Malcolm X was my person who I believed in, and she thought his philosophies were the more revolutionary ones. And so anyway, there's just a lot of history within these eyes. So that's it, basically. Someone's trying to come in, so we'll stop.
Thank you.
These are really beautiful, and honestly, I'm gonna admit I did not know that this was another side of you, in terms of like the watercolors, and just the painting itself. So it was really great to get to know this side of you, because I'm so used to seeing you as a performer, and so to see this other facet, I think is something that was really motivational for me, at least as a spectator viewing this art. So.
I wasn't sure if I was going to go into performing, into music, or into visual art. And I knew that visual art was what I was best at, and I knew that acting was what I was worst at. And so I majored in acting, which, I don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea, but I didn't study art in college. I studied performing. And then I gave up acting because I realized I really enjoyed spending time with musicians more than actors. So I became a singer. And now I have nothing better to do than sit here by myself and paint.
We have your cats around. I saw them walking around before.
They definitely like to step on the work whenever they get a chance.
So we're gonna see if our video is ready here, and take a look at your installation.
Hi there, I'm Liz Collins. I'm here in Provincetown at AMP Gallery in the East End on Commercial Street, and I'm going to take you through some of my works and tell you about the show. This show is called Taking Stock. It's part of a two-person exhibition here at AMP. The other artist is Justin Vivian Bond, and I have one room, and Viv has the other room. Taking stock to me means kind of assessing things. I use that expression a lot, and in this case, it's what I did to decide what to put in this show. I definitely wanted to put my needle points that I've been doing for the past several months in this show, like what I call them my COVID needle points. It's an ongoing series. And then taking stock of my work, pulling together pieces that have relationships to each other, are either in conversation or made at the same time, or look good together, feel right together energetically and aesthetically. Maybe a few surprises, like this. There's a collage that has these Victorian dolls in it that I made when I was in Germany many years ago. I mean, that's a part of the idea here, is to look at the expansive work that I've done over the years, showcase a lot of two-dimensional work that I've done, which is very different than what people typically know me for, which is a lot of 3D work, installation, textiles, a lot of materially forward kind of work in the fiber realm. I want people to understand that a lot of that work comes from a very dynamic practice of drawing and painting that's ongoing, and sometimes exploring obsessions like highway architecture. And yeah, I think it's a great show. The frames are magnificent, by the way. Thank you. Yeah. I'll just share quickly what's next so I can do a little promo, which is that I have something happening at the end of October. I'm launching a textile collection with a company called Pollock, and it's going to be installed on this beautiful furniture and this French furniture company, Lean Rose, on Park Avenue South. I think it's going to be like a kind of by appointment only event, but more on that later. It'll be an installation too with a lot of new artworks. And also just want to plug this book. I have a brand new book that came out. It was published by the Tang Museum, and you can go to the Tang Museum website and order it. It documents a 2-year project I did with them, and it's a fabulous book, and there are lots of great queer artists within who we know and love. So check it out.
Congratulations on the book, and congratulations to all of you again for the wonderful show that you put up. I hope I get to see it maybe between now and when it closes. I'll have some time, or at least, get someone to drive me up there. But in the meantime, again, if anybody wants to access the art show, just visit Art Marketplace and follow Justin and Liz on social media. Can you let us know a little bit about how they can find out about these projects and your work?
Sure. Well, I tend to update Instagram way more than my website. So at Lizzie Collins 7 is my Instagram handle. I don't know how to share that with people, so maybe Tom, you can put it in the chat. Yeah, that's my main way. Find me there. And there's a hashtag within that is like a nice kind of portfolio, hashtag Liz Collins Studio.
Great.
And I'm at
It's sorry, Lizzy.
And I'm at MXVIV, MixViv at Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you for dealing with the internets with us. You know how this goes, Viv. But I want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Debbie, for sharing the space with us and for creating the space so artists can talk about their work and their stories and what's going on, so that in a way we can all care for one another, or self-care. So thank you again.
Thank you, Richard, and Liz and Viv. I love you, and it's just been such a total pleasure working with you guys again. And Richard, thanks for everything that you're doing.
Yes,
Really.
all of
With
you.
that,
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, love all around. This is beautiful. Thank you. I mean, Richard, thank you for the
I'm gonna go like this.
gratitude and love, and thank you to our audience for tuning in.
Awesome.
Thanks to the center, one of my favorite places in New York City.
We'll be back soon. So post.
I miss being there.
Same, me too.
Yeah.
We'll see each other soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Good night. Bye.